If you stay here and listen, your life will never be the same. 'Cause we're talking with T-Bird now. And this T-Bird you cannot change. Oh, this T-Bird you cannot change. And things might get pretty strange.
Yes, that's right. Talking with T-Bird is back here during Survivor Fiji week here on Rob Has a Podcast. Got a great conversation coming up with Anthony Robinson from Survivor Fiji. What you voted the 28th best season of Survivor. And here we are with the woman that finds all the survivors, our own expert witness locator. It's Teresa T-Bird Cooper.
Eyewitness locator. Yes, absolutely. Anthony Robinson. He's never been on RHAP. So this is a treat.
Yes.
This is a special
treat. Yes, he
treat.
has never been with us yet on the podcast. So here he comes. Boom.
And after talking, Anthony's got a lot of interesting things to say. And after talking to some of his castmates, he is so loved. And it's funny how you see his personality on the show compared to talking to him. Not always one and the same. He was quiet on the show, not necessarily quiet outside of the show. So he's going to be a lot of fun today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very much looking forward to seeing him or hearing him on the podcast today, especially after watching his season. T-Bird, I was getting a lot of great feedback from people about our Dawn podcast that we did. I believe it was it only last week that we talked to Dawn?
It was last week. Oh, my gosh. Rob, I sent you a text message sometime a few days ago, and I said, I don't even know what I said. I said something like this. It was just really neat that Dawn had come off social media, and she actually sent me a message like a couple of days ago and said that she had to reactivate her account, and she did that, after talk with us, and the feedback and
I was surprised.
Comments, I know it.
Because she famously deleted her account during Caramon. Yeah.
Yes. And she actually said, after talking with us, she reactivated it. And the comments and the love and the support she has gotten, I mean, it's so heartwarming for me to read it and to see her reaction to the fans and all the love she's getting. It's like, it just feels really good. It's just really good.
So spectacular.
So if you haven't listened to Dawn Meehan, and I think Anthony will probably touch on this today because he got a situation also where he was kind of, I don't know, I hate to say the word, well, I guess if it fits, he was, bullied, maybe some on his show. And so to hear these players talk about, what they go through during the show and how it affects them and how it affects them after the show. And Dawn's story is certainly really touching, Anthony's is too. So perfect.
T-Bird, I just want to give you the credit for that because I got this feedback about talking with T-Bird where and I wish I could remember who said it to me, but talking with T-Bird is a celebration of these guests that we have on the show. And it's because you make it so special and it's such a great experience for the guests.
Oh, that makes my heart smile. I love it. And
yeah,
Rob,
because I usually only just make it a great experience for the listeners. Yeah.
Well, I just think they take so much time to come on. So you're right. It's nice to celebrate them and how they've touched others and all the cool, neat things they've done in their life. So, Dawn is one of those that like I said, just seeing the comments from people and the support she's gotten, and I know how that makes her feel after everything she went through. It's just feels really, really good. So I'm so glad I'm here doing this with you. Thank you so much for having me. And
that's why we're a good team, because I'm just so focused on the people at home and making sure that they have the best experience. Sometimes I don't always put the guest, give them their priority.
Well, I don't know if that's true, but we are good. We are a good team. Absolutely, definitely,
Yes.
and I love it.
All right.
It's not work. It's fun.
We have fun. Okay.
It's fun. So thank you.
Let's bring in Anthony. So take it away.
All right, here we go. We would see our guest today on season 14, Survivor Fiji. The tribes were not divided by ethnicity as the season prior, Cook Islands had been, but our guest would say that, quote, there was an all-black alliance starting on day 2. We were trying to protect each other without being too obvious about it, and yet still play our own individual games. I like to think that it worked, end quote. Yes. I actually think it did work. It would be the first time the final 3 were all African Americans, Cassandra, Dreams, and Earl. Our guest grew up in Compton, California, and describes himself as friendly, dorky, and intelligent. Castmate Gary Strateski, a.k.a. Papa Smurf, describes him as genuine, thoughtful, and friendly. Dreams told me he is very quiet. I will add, he may be quiet, but his beautiful, playful smile with a touch of mischief tells a different story. He is smart and bright with a Bachelor of Arts in American Studies from Yale University to back it up. Much like his other castmates, he was recruited for the show at 32 years old. He did, however, know the important parts of the game that some players never figure out. Don't be a leader, and don't share that you are in possession of an immunity idol. He would have a challenging start and be a member of the have-nots with only a pot and a machete. The social part of the game would prove brutal. Quote, I often wonder if these people like me, end quote. Unfortunately, a tribe swap would not help him. He would continue to be intimidated by the, quote, masculine men who targeted him, saying he was the weakest player physically. On day 16, he would be voted out and become one of the special 7. He held the title of lasting more days of all Survivor players who were eliminated without winning a challenge, not including Reem. He is now a husband and father of 2 boys, aged 7 and 12. He coaches middle school track and cross country. He has changed careers since the show and gone into film and TV. His good friend, Earl Cole, told me that Anthony is a good person, dad, and friend. He will be a big-time director one day. I believe in him. Like so many players experience the exhaustion of having very little sleep, once he was voted off, he would go through something similar to stages of grief, and after 14 years, he says he occasionally wakes up during the night, startled with the feelings of PTSD and Stockholm Syndrome mixed. But don't think this means he does not want his second chance. He most certainly does. He has some unfinished business that more than anyone else he has to prove to himself. And making his first appearance on RHAP, I introduce the awesome Anthony Robinson.
Yes.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much for that warm welcome. Hi, T-Bird. How you doing? Rob, how you guys doing?
Hey.
Doing great. How are you?
I'm here. I'm hanging in there, man. It's been a crazy time. Doing good.
Yeah, certainly. Well, this is, such a great time to get to talk to you. Of course, that we just rewatched Survivor Fiji for the all-time countdown, and we're telling you that. So, did you see it was in the countdown 28th? And I was apologizing, and you said, "Oh, that's a pleasant surprise."
Yeah. We, up until recently, we were like the most hated season. That's the sense that I got from everybody. Everybody hated our season. They hated it when we were on. They hated it when we got off. And then, the last few years, they've been hating on it until, pretty much until the last few seasons. So It's neat to hear that we're now ranked so much higher now. It's kind of lovely.
Yeah. We'll see how high it goes over the next couple of years.
And Rob, tell him the award he got, the Kelly Wentworth Award, that the fans voted for him, because that's so cool.
Yes, and we asked our listeners to vote for who is the deserving Kelly Wentworth Award of Best Pre-Merge Person from the season, and you were the winner.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. Well, thank
How about
you.
that?
Thank you very much, everybody. That's really cool, dude. That's surprising and very cool.
Yeah.
I'm delighted to hear that.
That is very cool. Very cool. Are you still watching?
Yeah, I still watch. I almost walked away from it doing Blood versus Water, because that was painful to watch.
What part of it?
All these people. Pretty much watching people that have become friends and extended family eat each other and get hated on, and just like just watching like Laura, right? So it's like I'm friends with I'm friends with Rupert. I met him early on, and met his wife early on. She's a wonderful woman, and just to kind of watch how people tore into her, it was like, I can't watch this. Watching people turn to Arison's brother, and it's like it's just they're all friends, and we're this weird big goofy extended family, this weird fraternity that we're in. And when you've met people and you've hung out, and it just it gets weird. It gets weird watching family members play a game that is brutal, and for us alumni, it's something that we know what we're getting into when we get into it. We get back into it. Yeah. And to watch family members who kind of understand now fully understand, and to have them go through the exact same thing, but it's worse in some ways because they have a rough idea of what's coming, but they're not ready for it.
Yeah, that's very interesting to hear you talk about that, because I know how involved you are with games and gaming, and specifically like immersive games, and so I think it's like a very interesting part of your personality that you love this stuff, but also like it is painful to have some of these experiences play out in these games.
Yeah, I mean, like you say, I do immersive theater, and I mean, that's a big part of what I've been doing the last few years.
Can you explain what that is?
The short version. It's never a short version. The easiest version. We're all fans of a certain age now. Okay, so if I say Star Trek to you, most of all your listeners probably know what I'm talking about. If I say Star Trek Next Generation, or Deep Space Nine, or even the new stuff, you guys know what I'm talking about. So if I say the holodeck,
yes,
most people will get it.
T-Bird, you know the holodeck?
You know the holodeck?
Now, no, I was right there with you until you said that. I know, I don't.
Yes. Okay, go ahead.
So for those of you of a certain age,
are you going to tell me? Are you going to tell me what it is?
Well, I will. Well, the holodeck, for those of you guys who are only Star Wars fans, I'm sure my nerd here, and that's okay. For the holodeck is a place in Star Trek in the later generations of Star Trek universe, where they literally had holograms that, using force field technology, would feel and look and sound real, like you were actually interacting with real people, but it was computer generated. We can't do that yet. The closest thing we can do is murder mysteries. If you've ever done a murder mystery dinner, or you know about those things, the closest thing that I can describe what immersive theater is take your old. Okay, I'm going to blow a lot of people's minds. For those of you guys who don't know, and people who are in immersive will hate me for how I'm describing this, but if you take a good old haunted house, right, where people are dressed up in costumes and they can come out and scare you, you take a murder mystery, right, where you kind of interact and touch on the plot and help people out, and they question you, interact with you, and then you take a D&D role-playing game, right? So you guys know what I'm talking about, D&D, Rice Play, where you take on a part.
T-Bird, you know about the D&D?
Yeah, I'll just continue. I'm going to catch up with everything as we go. It's going to all come together for me.
Okay.
All right.
So it'll all come together.
So you take all those, and sometimes you take a nice traditional play. Take a play. Take whatever play you want to do. And you put them in a box, and you shake them up, right? And you pour them out in front of somebody, so that you give them an experience where there's a story. It's a different way of telling a story, in which you have what is either actual agency, like you can make choices, or the illusion to make choices of some kind, of something that's interactive. So, which is a wonderful convoluted way of saying that Survivor is probably one of the best immersive experiences that you're ever going to get, because you're there and it's real, and you're playing a game, and you have at least the illusion of agency. You have the illusion of control. over what's going on with the game. And while you're in it, and it's all real. I mean, because it is. I mean, they're not going to let you starve to death, but that threat is there. You feel like you're going to starve to death, even though that they'll airlift you out at any moment if that happens.
Yes. Anthony, these immersive games that you work on, are these in person, like pre-COVID, or are these all online?
So pre-COVID, most of the immersive experiences were in person. And this, by the nature of the beast and the nature of this last year or so that we've all experienced, most of the stuff has gone online. I'd say like 99.99% of it is either some version of, either online on some kind of interactive web platform, like Zoom or Discord, or other ones have done really neat things with social distancing. Yeah. Where there was one here in Los Angeles where it was basically vampires delivered your pizza, and it was all so you could order pizza and vampires would come and deliver it to you. Then there's other things where just kind of like you play by mail, you make phone calls and people call you. They had to get creative. We had to get creative in the industry to keep it alive, including things like escape rooms. Even escape rooms had to get super creative, so they're doing things with telepresence, where basically, somebody straps the camera on their head and you tell them where to look. Yeah. And how to unlock things. So, we had to get creative with it.
And what is your role in these? Are you writing these, or are you sort of like is there a director?
For these shows, yeah. I mean, they're written shows. Most of them are written. There's a large improv element to a lot of them, but most of them are really well written. There's people direct them. You have to have somebody who's running it, so you have an actual vision. I don't at this point I don't write them. However, I work for kind of a web portal entity magazine. I don't even know what we call it. We don't even know what we call ourselves all the time. It's a website called No Proscenium. Yes. No Proscenium, noproscenium.com. For those of you guys who remember your ancient Greek theater. God, I'm such a geek. The proscenium is basically, it is that fourth wall. Okay, it's the edge of the stage. That's the proscenium. They called it the proscenium arch, right? Which is basically what locked it in to what makes it a stage show, right? And you are the fourth wall as the audience. No proscenium. The idea is that there are no prosceniums. There is no fourth wall. You are in it. You are on stage. It is real. You are there. And that's the concept, kind of where the name came from. And we report on this stuff. We are one of the, I like to say, we are one of the worldwide leaders in reporting and covering on all things immersive, everything from escape rooms to haunts to immersive plays to Instagram factories, mail-in play-by-mail games. We cover.
What's an Instagram factory?
Instagram factories. So in LA and New York, a couple other places, I think they actually had one in London as well. There's one of the famous ones is Museum of Ice Cream, which some of you guys may have heard of. And it's a place where, maybe in the corner it's real, so like you have a place where you can take pictures, and for the moment that you're in it, you're in it. And there's a big argument whether or not it's immersive or not, but depending on how the stories are told, if there is a story, we consider it immersive. So there's a new thing that's going on right now in Las Vegas from the group called Meow Wolf. Okay. Meow Wolf Art Collective. And they actually, this is their first real big outside of their original New Mexico home. And basically they're an artist collective who basically have created these neat stories that are interactive and built through these art installations. They just opened up a thing called Omega Mart, and it's a literal supermarket with all these weird items in it. Like you can get tattooed chicken. They call it tattooed chicken. I mean, go look it up. Go look up Omega Mart.
What is tattooed chicken?
It is.
Damn.
They just have weird stuff. Okay. Yeah. Like they have pictures on their Instagram of a chicken that has tattoos on it. And you can get it in a can, which is not really an actual can of tattooed chicken. It's a stash can, but they sell actual real products, so they sell all these weird themed products of, like milk, milk, and they have cabbage slippers, and it's just weird stuff. But there's a story in there, and it's really cool because there's a story of anti-capitalist underground raiders. Like, it's this whole thing, and if you search in certain places, you can find more of the story, which will take you through, and there's secret passages and the whole deal. So that's kind of that's a great example of an Instagram story, Instagram palace. There's a bunch of places here in LA, there's places in New York, and literally it's just, there are places worldwide where you can go, you take a really cool picture that you can share, and while you're there are things you can do,
Anthony, would you say that also the theme of Survivor Fiji was also an anti-capitalist message, where really the moral of the story was that if you give one group a head start, that the rich will continue to get richer and the poor will continue to get poorer? Was that your experience?
I think that's exactly what it ended up being. I don't think that's what they necessarily thought it was going to be. But yeah, no, that's hella what happened. Wow, I just said hella. That's the most California thing I think I've ever done in my life. Hella. I mean, being on the island being on this island where we had such a huge disadvantage, and quite honestly, like, I think that was the first time they'd ever done that, and I know that they haven't done it since, and I'm pretty sure they're never going to do it again.
It's a bad idea.
It was an interesting experiment. Survivor is a social experiment, and that's what they've always said. It is a social experiment. That one was a straightforward experiment that, like, I think anybody, if we'd seen it coming, would have told you what the answer was going to be. I'm almost interested to see if they would implement it again, but with some different rules, because they had the one twist in there where you could give up immunity, right? And but you got to keep the luxury, as opposed to, like, you won the luxury, and if that was something that was like every week, like, okay, you want immunity, but you have to give up the luxury. See how that would play out. It changes the stakes, and it makes it less of a foregone conclusion because you have to play differently. And I don't know. I think it would be interesting to see how that would play out. Play out today, because people
like
play
that.
differently. So.
Yes. Hey, let me ask you, Anthony. So I know everybody except for Papa Smurf, I believe, were recruited. Y'all were recruited. So did you go back and watch any of the shows that had been on before you got out there? Did you have anything to compare it to when you started the game?
Well, this is things like Papa Smurf and we were the biggest fans on the island. I was already a fan of the show. Like, I had longed since day one, and that's kind of how they ended up finding me. I mean, it's funny, people have a misapprehension of what being recruited for Survivor is. And there's a wide berth of what that means. I mean, it's everywhere from literally on the street, hey, you should sign up for Survivor, because they've done that, to, in my case, it was, I got, like, I'm going to show my age too. So I was on Friendster. So before
T-Bird,
Facebook,
you know Friendster?
What's happening here? How can I not know all this stuff? And I'm learning about cosplay, live action, role playing. Is that like a dating site? Because that's what it sounds like. Is it?
No. Well, some people use it as a dating site, but no, it was before Facebook, before MySpace.
Yeah,
that's how far back we're going. Friendster was a spinoff of another website. I feel like a Matt Pinfield. It's like in 1982, a site came out called 6 Degrees. There was a site called 6 Degrees back in the day, which was a spinoff of the 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon.
Kevin Bacon, yeah.
And Friendster stole that same idea, and they basically said you can link anybody within 7 degrees, right? And it actually had like this weird little like hookup tree chart. Remember doing those from high school and college, like the hookup tree? Like,
can you listen to what a hookup tree is?
T-Bird, do you know what a hookup tree is?
Okay, so Anthony and Rob, if I get real quiet and I'm not talking, that means I'm pretty much trying to figure out what's going on. So no, I don't.
Yeah. So
Rob, yeah.
So I don't know if any of our audience ever did this. It's awesome. If any of our audience ever did this. So, we used to trick, like in college, it was like, who you hooked up with, who you got together with in whatever way you got together with people.
Yes.
And in high school, it was, whoever you made out with, right?
See,
It's
Anthony,
like
mine could be on a Post-it, I think.
It's like one woman. You only ever made out with one woman.
Yeah.
You married her. But
and then you can see who else also did. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And then you can make your little. It's like you look like that guy in that meme with with all the red with all the red pins.
Yes.
Right. You look like that guy. It's okay. So Sandra Bullock.
Yeah, the Charlie Day
was married to this guy. Yeah. Married to this guy who made out with this person.
Okay, and this was part of Friendster.
Yeah, so that's effectively what Friendster was. It showed you those lines. Okay, so it was. So whereas now, like, you have your thing on LinkedIn. So you have your thing on LinkedIn that says this person, like how many degrees friends removed. You have it, right? Take that, but actually draw literal lines to pictures that you could see, who you were connected to and how you were connected to them.
Okay.
Long story short, too late. They thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. A friend of a friend who happened to be recruiting for castings for Survivor saw, was just clicking, I guess, and found my profile. And at the time, it was like, big fan of reality shows, and I was a fan of Survivor, and I was a fan of this show, and I was a fan of this show, and a fan of Lost, and a fan of this, and like it was like a third reality shows at the time. And I got this message. I came back from vacation. I went on a trip with a friend. I got this message that said, hey, looks like you're really interested in reality shows. Call this number. I was like, okay, like, sure. At the time, me and my best friend at the time, still my best friend, he was my best man at my wedding. We were trying to apply for the Amazing Race. We were trying to put our applications, get our stuff together, and he was trying to get his passport, and I was trying to get my stuff. And we were like really, trying to put the thing together. And I get this message, and I'm like, okay, let me call, whatever, I'll see what's going on. And I called at lunch, and I'm amazed my boss didn't fire me. I talked for like 2 hours. I talked for 2 hours with this woman in this call, and we just talked about reality shows and which ones you're a fan of and why you think it worked. And I went off for about like an hour and a half of it to talk about Survivor. And and how I do if I play, and this is how I do it, and this is what I think is cool about the show. This is what doesn't work, and this is what's smart, and this is what's hard, and my favorite players. And she was like, asked me these not so leading questions, but like, who's your favorite player? I'm like, this person's over here, and this person's really intelligent, and this person, and and she's like, I think you'd be really great on the show we're looking to cast. You should apply. We'll muscle your application through. We'll make sure you get seen. And I said, really great. That's cool. And I was like, oh, what show is it? And she goes, oh, it's Survivor. And it was so hard locking that down because I had my office door closed and like trying not to scream. Like, oh my God. And she's like, give me your address. We'll FedEx, the application for it. And that phone book application that we get. You guys remember that thing, that huge, like thing. So I get this thing in the FedEx, of the application, and I had like 2 days to turn it around. So I had to fill out the application because they're like, well, we're getting ready to do our round of casting. You need to get this to us right away. And I got the application done, and I filmed and cut together a video, my application video. I had to do the video, and I hand delivered it. I had to drive like all the way out to Santa Monica in the middle of traffic on a Sunday, right? to drop it off and hand deliver it to the casting person. And they were awesome. And, they're standing there like, okay. And they're literally standing there waiting for me on the side of their apartment. And like, I passed off like a football, and, they ran it off, and I get a call literally 2 days later. They're like, Mark Burnett saw your audition tape and loved it. Wow. And we want you to be in it.
What did you do?
So
yeah, Anthony. And did you do cosplay? Did you do cosplay when you were doing it? Do you know what that is, Rob?
Yes,
Rob,
I do. I do know what cosplay is.
Oh, shoot. That was my one shot. Okay, go ahead.
I did. I did. I ended up inadvertently cosplaying before I even dabbed my toe into cosplay, because I had costumes from games that I'd done. Because the thing about live action role playing games is that when you can, you dress up, and it kind of helps the immersion. You want this suspension of disbelief to go. So like so many of us do now when we go to Star Wars Galaxy Edge, we dress up not in costume, but close as we can without getting kicked out. I basically put on a bunch of costumes. I showed like games that I played. I I danced around a fire, shirtless.
Mhm.
Fell on my ass a bunch of times while rollerblading, just to show I'm having fun, but I'm clumsy and I can get back up again. And I did the stereotypical thing that everybody does. I dressed up like Jeff Probst and stood in front of a pot. The winner of Survivor is Anthony, and that was my big finish. Little note that I was always just forecasting. Spoiler alert: my own demise on the show. But here's the thing, guys. Just for the Survivor gods, if you ever apply to the show with a video, don't do the thing where Jeff pulls your name out the pot, because do the thing with like money falling from you. Like it'll probably work out better. But yeah, that's what I did, and I just put my thing together, and I talked about a car crash that I was in that year. For anybody who wants to dig around the internet, you can probably find pictures of it. I was in a really horrific car crash.
Yeah.
2 months before my application was requested, and it was a car crash I shouldn't have walked away from. So I put pictures of that in it, and talked about about that and just growing up in Compton, and apparently it was wonderfully dorky, and I was enough of a character that that Burnett loved it, and they wanted me to be in the show. And next thing I knew, I was like prepping for like 3 weeks later to be in Sequester to during the casting process. So
yeah.
Well, Anthony, so I want to say thank God you were okay in your accident. Thank God for that. And now my second question is, how in the world did you do all this under 3 minutes in a video?
Lots of. I took a couple hours to plan. I took a couple hours to plan, like, what do I want in it? And I wrote it down on a piece of paper. I scripted it, I scripted it just kind of like, this is what I'm going to do. And I wrote something.
Right.
And I said, okay, well, this is what I want to do. And I'm going to be honest when I do it. And I'm not going to, I purposely wasn't going to be like, okay, I'm going to, I'm not going to make up what I'm going to do. But I was like, okay, I'm going to talk about my accident. I'm going to talk about, I'm different. I'm going to be a different African-American player that they've seen before. Because I think I was like the first black nerd. I was the first blurred on the show, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, this is how I'm going to be, and this is what I hope to do. And I wrote just like what I was going to say over it, and I just cut a bunch of just vignettes together, and then talked over it. And that's what I got for my under 3 minute video. And I was lucky. I got a lucky bounce, and So I had to do the application, just so we're clear on this. My recruitment was, I actually still had to go through the whole process.
Sure.
Just compressed.
Yeah.
By a lot. So get your applications in early.
Mm-hmm.
Anthony, thank you so much for explaining about being recruited, because I have talked to quite a few that have been recruited, but your recruitment is actually very different from, like you said, we talked to, was it Nyanka? That was out on the beach somewhere, and they actually found her there. And I guess when I think
and Dreams had a similar story.
That's what I think.
Yeah.
And Dreams, and Dreams too. So thank you so much for sharing that. That helps open my eyes to recruiters being recruited. So thank you.
I mean, my pleasure. I mean, that's the thing. It's like when Survivor recruits people, it really just means that they want people to come to at least apply. And there are lots of people that they find like on the street. I mean, and our season was just like they had holes to fill. And, as far as I know, I was one of the early people who they picked later in the process, but early enough that they had choices. And I know that Gary, Papa Smurf, because we've chatted, Papa Smurf was in theory supposed to be on a season or two earlier. And they said, we want you to be on, but we want to wait for a better season for you. And I swear to Buddha, like Amanda, right? Beautiful Lady Amanda, was at the hotel with us. Because I distinctly remember, her being at the hotel at the same time. And, her ended up on the next season because, and I tell this story all the time, because Probst got me in the room, and, he did that thing where he's interviewing. He's like, right, so who would you want to be on the show with you? I'm like, I want to be on the island with the good-looking brunette that's wearing boots and that's wearing cowboy boots and stretchy pants. Like, I want to be on the show with her. Can I be on the island with her? Just strand me. It's fine. I will follow her around. I will help her win. I don't care. Just turns out she'd be on the next season. But yeah, I remember for different people, it's like, because we talked later, just like, how'd you get up on the show? I know Sylvia, they grabbed her on somebody saw Sylvia, they knew her from something else. And they said, Sylvia, we need an older woman, and you're a personality, come on the show. And she's like, okay, I guess so. And I know other people who got recruited the same way as I did. They had to turn in something.
Mm-hmm.
They had to go through the process. Earl, they've been trying to recruit for forever. I think, you guys talked to him, like, they've been trying to get him and his wife to, go on Amazing Race, and like, do you do this? Like, no. And then girlfriend, they were trying to get him on the show for forever. And, they finally was like, hey, we know who you are. We've seen you before. Come on, Survivor. And he, his turnaround was like, I had time to go get my shots. I got all my stuff together. His turnaround, I think he had like 3 days.
Yeah.
He was on the plane like instantly. And I'm still mad at him because he won because of that. So I'm like, but no, I'm not mad at him. I'm proud to know that I had like, a toe in his success.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's just really when they're recruiting, and when they say they're recruiting, they're just looking for the best people.
Sure.
To be on the show. And sometimes that means they have to go outside the box that they normally do to get people on. So. Yeah.
Because there's a negative connotation to that with a lot of the Survivor fans, where they think about like, oh, the Mactors are the recruits, but it's also people who may have an interest in the show, but just we're not planning on sending in a tape at this time.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like, if you want to be on the show, you just have to want to be on the show, and it's they have so many people. They have so many people who apply every year, but they're looking for a certain mix.
Yeah,
and I know that mix is going to be changing now, but they really are looking for a mix of people of different walks of life.
Yeah. Hey, you could say I'm a recruit to Survivor too. That I applied to be on Big Brother. I went through the casting process for Big Brother, and then they called me one day and said, "Hey, do you want to be on Survivor?" So yeah, call me a recruit too. Yeah.
Rob's a recruit too.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. I did not know that.
Yes.
Yeah. I did not know that either, so that's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow. Rob, have they looked at you again? Have they looked at you again for Big Brother, Rob? I have to ask that.
Not since I was on Survivor. Not that I can recall. Maybe they had some internal conversations. Okay. Yeah.
Well, they moved people from Big Brother to Survivor, so we haven't had any survivors on Big Brother, though, have we? Have we?
Not yet.
Oh, maybe. Not yet. Did you hear that,
Russell's brother.
Russell's brother. Yeah.
Yeah. Why, Anthony? You want to do Big Brother?
No.
Mm-hmm.
No. Because I've heard wonderful I've hung out with enough Big Brothers enough that I've heard the stories from inside the house.
Yeah.
And they don't follow us into the bathroom with Survivor.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you are actively plotting, they leave you alone when you go to the bathroom. Yeah. There's cameras in the bathroom for Big Brother, and I just like I'm okay with not being on 24 hours a day. It's like I've talked to Evil Dick enough. Evil Dick has told me some stories of getting calls from people like, you grind your teeth in your sleep. I'm like, do you want people like Survivor? So the world that comes with Survivor after is incredibly intrusive enough. So, I don't need people knowing that I grind my teeth in my sleep or how many nose hairs I have because the camera decided to focus on my face for that.
Yeah. Anthony, in this season, you're lower thirded as, I believe, a expert witness locator. And that makes it sound like you were like a bounty hunter to me.
Oh, man. I get asked that question a lot. No, at the time when I was working there, so at the time I got on Survivor, I was working at this little firm that basically was a legal support firm.
Mm-hmm.
And so what that job was is that in any given legal case where there's evidence to be examined or people to be examined or something as ridiculous as something slipping and falling, you have to have people who go through the evidence. You have to have people who, know what they're talking about to testify in front of a jury or in front of a judge or an arbiter or whatever. And my job was to find those people. That's literally what I did. So I found expert witnesses. So, just for instance, I'm just going to just make up something. Okay. For instance, somebody, is on a podcast, a live podcast, and gets electrocuted on the microphone.
Oh my
right?
God.
Okay, like horror story, right?
Yeah.
So somebody puts their hands on the microphone, they got wet.
Am I liable for that, Anthony?
Well, it depends if you have insurance or something.
Yeah.
And people sue. People will sue everybody. They'll sue, people will sue you. They'll sue, if you have a corporation, they'll sue the corporation. They'll sue the maker of the microphone. They'll sue the people who made the water, the table, everything. That's how you do. It's because it'll stick to somebody, right? And all those different people need to prove why they're not in the case, or if they know that they're in the case, to kind of mitigate how much liability they have. So in this particular, fictional case, so like somebody suing Rob and, RHAP and the maker of the microphone and Samsung or whatever it is, or
it's a horror story.
Right? It's a horror story. Somebody sues, right? My job is to find somebody who maybe, is a professional podcaster. So like I'd call up somebody else from another podcaster, or somebody who's got a background in broadcasting or something, goes like, well, you never sue the host. That's just ridiculous, right? Because you don't control the equipment, or you do control the equipment, but this is how much. Or I'd find an electrician who'd be like, well, the reason this was exposed was because the guy had been digging at it with his pocket knife nervously, and I'd opened a wire. That's what my job was. I kind of helped the attorney kind of either lower it down to from 40 experts to one expert or 2 experts that could help them. Or sometimes we get calls from attorneys who had no clue what they wanted. There was I need an expert to help me out in this. They're like, well, it sounds like you need you need an electrician and a podcaster. Here are a couple of people who can help you. And that's what I did. Or, just you have to help the attorney craft who they need and find a good person for them. And that's what I did professionally for 7 years of my life. Including when I was on Survivor. I was an expert at finding expert witnesses.
That sounds interesting, Anthony.
Yeah, it was.
So I want to go back to your Survivor experience a little bit, and it's so powerful, everything that you went through. The show really makes a story out of your back and forth with Rocky. It comes up at the reunion. Do you feel like that, because there's so many people that resonate with that story, because I think there's so many of us that have a Rocky in our lives, that are you happy that that's such a big part of your Survivor story, or do you wish that the show focused on other parts of your adventure?
I wish it was very much part of my story, and it was a large part of my story of what happened out there. I wish that other things that had got brought up in some of the secret footage they used to leak online, remember they used to
secret scenes,
secret scenes. There was one of the secret scenes that was leaked, quote unquote leaked. I remember from our season that I really wish it made it to the show.
Yeah,
it was this great moment of them interviewing Mookie, and it was after we came back from one of the tribals, and I got water in my system, I was feeling good, and it was this thing where I had no idea that they weren't scared of me, but they were concerned. It was Anthony's got confidence. Crap. Oh man. I mean, that's literally what it was. It was I don't know where he's got this newfound energy and this confidence from, but it's we have to watch out for it, because he's actually going to be a scary player if he gets far in the game. And it was nice to see. One, for me, it was nice to see that, because I was like, wow, I would have loved to have seen that on the show. But also it tells more of the broader story of my experience. I had high highs and low lows out there, and I know everybody does, but for whatever reason, most of mine were on camera. And the thing about Survivor, and for anybody who's worried about how it gets edited, one, they have to take hundreds of hours of footage and boil it down to 20 minutes, right? Or to 40 minutes. And for your Survivor story to come on the air, it's a lot of them picking a narrative, like them cutting and pasting and gluing and just figuring out what that narrative is. And sometimes it's a narrative that, it's a narrative of yourself that you don't necessarily want to see. And because it either will highlight something that you're not proud of, or it will highlight something that you know you need to work on. Because they take this small nugget of you, like they take like a 1 by 1 inch nugget of you, and then they blow it up to 16 by 40 feet. So it's you. It is very much you, and it's the person who you are, but it's not all of you. It's not a complete picture of you. And I know that's really hard to craft. They used to do it. They used to do it really well when it was about like the experience. Like in the early, if you look at the early seasons and you meet the survivors that you meeting the person that you saw on the screen. Yeah. Like 8 out of 10 times. But now it's like, or at least in the mid game, oh my God, it's been that long. In the mid series of Survivor, it was in this weird transition thing where it was more about the game itself and less about the experience. And because of that, it changed people's stories. It changed a lot of how our stories were told. And it was already moving towards that way, but it's in some people's cases, like some people got no story. Liliana got no story. Mm-hmm. Liliana came from like this girl who's here to this big player who her story happened during the challenges, and then it was like one night we have to vote for somebody. Oh, she's a sex kitten. She wasn't. It's like she had things that she was doing to get got people pulled to her, and she was playing the game in her own way. But she was, as far as if you look at the season, she had no story. She had like a 1 episode story. Yeah, and that's I personally don't think that's fair. I don't think that's fair for her. As a player, because we're all playing the game, in some way or another. For her to get that little of a story, because she was out there doing stuff. I mean, she was flirting. I mean, that was that part of that, her craft for that 1 episode. But she'd been doing that the whole time. She'd been doing that in like pregame. Like I don't even know how she managed to do it. Like there was one point where we all looked over and she's got like the bug spray and she's just like oiling herself up the bug spray, and like all the guys are like, hi, and when you have this person who is as strong as any guy out there, as competent as any person who's played the game out there, who is almost single-handedly carrying a bunch of these people on her back, and she's carrying the girls with her, and she's fighting, she's up there with the guys, just a roughneck, and she's playing a good social game. To have that boil down to like 1 episode, it's kind of hard, So I mean.
Not to mention, it was such an insane decision to vote her out in that spot. First off, they, as you mentioned, that they gave up immunity to go to tribal council, and Edgardo and Alex are listening to Lisi and Stacy to say, hey, we got to vote out Liliana. And they end up keeping in Cassandra, who ends up being like a key number who's going to flip against those guys later on. That I really feel like that changed the whole season, that vote.
It did. I think that changed. It changed the game for everybody who was left. It really did. Mm-hmm. First of all, them giving up immunity to go back to that nice camp, I think was the dumbest. That was the dumbest move in that game, because the winner would have come out of that. The winner would have come out of that tribe if they continued on the way they were going. And like for me to see that happen, like even at the day, I was like, I'm not mad. I'm like, sure, you guys go ahead. I went back to tribal, and everybody else was broody about like, oh man, we lost again. I'm like, we don't have to go to tribal council. I'm like singing, they got mad at me because like I was all happy.
Well, devil's advocate, let me just ask you. So did you feel like that had they said, you know what, all right, well, we will go to Ravu, let them have our camp. They're going to have to vote somebody out. I think then Rita ends up going at the next tribal council. So hypothetically, let's just say that stays the same. But now you're recharged a little bit. Yeah. They have food. Is it possible that Ravu ends up sort of a little rejuvenated there?
Well, I think it would have. I think if we had actually gone back to the thing, I think the vote for Rita would have played out earlier. Mm-hmm. Given that we would all been recharged, but she would have been recharged. She would have been in the same place that she was when we voted her out, just because of where she was.
Yeah,
she was.
Yeah, well, you would have had to vote somebody out that night. You would have so probably Rita's time to go is that night.
It would have probably been Rita. Depending on how things had gone, it would have been Rita. I know nobody would have gotten sent to Exile. I mean, like I'm trying. This is me like going back to
mental gymnastics.
Mental gymnastics. But honestly, the hardest thing that was happening with us was that we kept losing. At least for me and my alliance, was we kept losing. We kept losing Earl because they kept sending Earl back. I'm like, can you send me? Like send me or send Yao Man, send somebody else other than Earl. They kept sending Earl back, and the thing was, Earl, wasn't our challenge beast, but Earl was our social game linchpin. He was our number.
Right.
And every time Earl left the tribe, hijinks would ensue. I mean, think about who got voted off for us. Like, Earl's gone. Okay, and now the three members of the four, the horsemen, sit there and they chat together, or the two members of the horsemen would sit there like they work their thing out. And I think if we'd gone there at that time, what we'd been working on, because our next vote we were planning before the tribal mix-up, we were going to send Mookie home.
No,
and that was something that me and Earl and Yao Man had been throwing around, that we want to send Mookie home, because we knew he was a huge threat. We knew he was a huge physical threat, and we knew that he was helpful. So we were like, we send Mookie, we're just sending Rocky. We're like going well, if we bring Rocky with us and Mookie's gone, that means Rocky will step up his how he's playing with people back at Tribe. But if we send Rocky home, then we stuck with Mookie, and Mookie's really strong. And if he gets to the merge, we were playing that game. I mean, that was you never got to see our conversations, but Earl and I had multiple hour long conversations about this stuff.
Yeah.
And it was like, who do we send next, and why do we send them, and who do you want to take to the end? And I always come back to that. If you've heard any other interviews with me, it's like Survivor's that balance of figuring out who you take with you to the end, who can get you there and who you can win against. And we kept going like, Rocky would be really good in the final five, right? Yeah, it's like he'll get us there, and then we will universe. So we were thinking that it was for our alliance that we had our squishy alliance and our bigger alliance. And I say squishy because we had the Ravu alliance, and then we had our big alliance, which was the all black folk alliance. The hard thing was balancing those, because we had to get to the point where we can get everybody, as many people as we could to the end, and kind of to go back in a roundabout way and answer your question. I really think it would have been Rita with a backup in her back pocket of probably, I'm guessing, Mookie at that point.
Yeah. I'd love to ask you a little bit about that all black Final Five alliance as it pertains to the Erica vote, because on that second vote of the season, Earl gets sent away to Exile Island, and he can't vote. While Earl's away, the rest of the tribe knocks out Erica because she was shouting too much in the challenge. Was the reason why they said on the show. Was there more to it than that? Was that a move to, did the other players suspect that there was an alliance there and that they wanted to break that up while Earl was away?
I think it's a little column A, a little column B. They knew that me and Earl and Erica were close. And I think I definitely think it was there, and so much of this is hindsight, and we've talked, we've of course talked since. Mookie knew there was something up. Mookie had been playing really smart. I mean, Mookie had been trying to figure out relationships, and he was doing that. He was doing 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon on the island.
The hookup tree.
Yeah, he was doing the hookup tree. Wow, we just went full circle on that. So if you looked around the corner on the side of a tree, Mookie had dyed a bunch of vines red and had had the mystery string thing going. I wish, but in his head he did. I know he did in his head, and he was trying to identify relationships, and he correctly identified that that me and Earl were, because I was always hanging out with Earl, but he kind of figured out that Erica was in with that group too. And I think for some people, I think for Rita was like, let's get rid of her before I get rid of me. You didn't make it to air, but there was a moment, and I remember it pretty well, when that very first vote, when we voted Jessica DeBan off, when we voted JDB off. I don't even know why. But But Michelle and Erica and Rita literally came up to me and they said, "Can you guys protect us? Like, we don't want to go home. We don't want to be all girls." I was like, well, like, first of all, my brain, my inner brain was like, why are you coming to me? Because I don't have the power. My second brain was like, yes, we will do you guys aren't on our radar. You're not next. And which was funny because I'm like, at least for like 5 minutes, it looked like I had power out there, and at least people perceived it as that. But yeah, no, it was very much the women on our island who were playing the game. I think when they looked at who we voted out first, I think they immediately went to, they're going to vote out all the girls first, which is, as you know, it's always a mistake. If you go like any straight line like that, let's vote all the boys first, let's vote all the girls first. It just doesn't work. It's too hard. It's too hard to play to do. And it's not a smart one because you instantly you form a team that's opposite of you. And we weren't thinking that way. It's just like I think what we got caught in was that we were hanging out. We were hanging out too much. I mean, we were doing the thing where it's like we were hanging out open and obvious, like, you know, like this little group of, you know, 3 black players on our side. You know, me, Earl, and Erica. So like they went, oh, clearly they're all together. Let's break up that alliance. Not knowing that the alliance was much deeper than they ever suspected.
Anthony, let me go back to Rocky if I can, because we just talked with Dawn Meehan from South Pacific and Caramoan, and, you know, she had a really rough time with the final jury, but the fans were equally as brutal to her. So I'm curious, once you came off with Rocky being kind of cruel to you with, I mean, some of the comments that he made about your, you know, you're a man, act like it, and you act like a little girl sometimes, and things like that. And I know, and actually Papa Smurf, I talked to him about you for quite some time this week. He was telling me that he thinks that Rocky, a lot of that was kind of playing up for the camera. But still, I mean, it was directed at you. Once you came off, how did the fans react to you? Were they sensitive to you or not?
Some were, some weren't. Like I say, it's the thing of, you know, earlier seasons where, you know, if you came off the island and you saw, you know, you talked to people, you were talking to the person that, you know, most time was out there. When I came off, it was a combination of people understanding that we weren't the character that we were portrayed as, and then there were people who just, you know, it's like, oh, you're a wuss your season, you were a horrible person, you're the worst player ever, and you know, they thought that the guy who was playing quiet and meek, you know, who was playing a game, is also, you know, a pushover in real life where I can punch people.
Yeah.
You know, because you're not allowed, you know, we're not allowed to touch people out there. And which is why, you know, all the trouble recently. But like, you know, you punch somebody on the island, you go home. No questions asked. You're gone. Right. And that's something that's stripped away out there. You know, it's like that threat of immediate social punishment is gone. And because it is, there are things that get said out there that will never get said in a million years in real life. You know, because, you know, you step up to certain people a certain way, you're going to get punched in the face. Just, it's going to happen. Or there are other repercussions. You know, you're out there trying to win $1 million. So sometimes you will back off your personality. Sometimes you'll overpush with your personality, and sometimes you'll compromise in ways that you would never compromise in the real world. People make that assumption that you are still playing the game. And I had a couple of fans at different points, and, you know, to be quite honest, like I may have brought it on myself, by just piping in certain places where it wasn't, piping in on some of the forums and stuff, because as you sometimes do, you shouldn't read the forums, but we're going to read the forums. And when people say things, sometimes you'll say things back, and sometimes you'll make a comment just because you think you're being funny and witty, and somebody wants to run with it. And I've had people on the forums. I've had people in real life that came to parties that wanted to talk shit. Excuse me, can we curse on this one?
You're good. You're good.
All right. People want to talk shit like at a room full of survivors who, it's like, you sucked and you were an ass your season, or you're a wuss, or you're a little girl, or what, first of all, like, the slights against, for me, part of it is like, I consider myself a feminist.
Mm-hmm.
I don't always succeed, but I try to do my best.
Right.
It's offensive to women.
Yeah.
let's be clear. It's offensive. It's offensive to women.
Can I just add that? And that it's like, oh, Anthony, he's no good because he acts like a woman, and then later on, it's like, oh, Lisi is great because she's like a guy here. It was like, if you are a woman, but if you're like a guy, good. If you're a guy but like a woman, bad.
Yeah, and I don't even know what that means.
Mm-hmm.
Because like every woman who's out there was very much, a quote, they were a woman.
Mm-hmm.
There are some that, were, there's some folks who could throw down with guys, and they could stand toe to toe on that level. But we're all people, and it's things like using that as a slur. One, I wasn't okay with, because one of the strongest people in my life at the time, and still, it's my mom. My grandma, and and for me, it's like, I'd watched them grow up. Growing up, I'd watched them and what they dealt with in the world that we were living in, and how much love and strength that they put behind everything they did. When you hear that over and over again, and then you come, out there was one thing, but when you hear that here, it's like, dude, do you not have any women in your life? Do you not have any? Are you unaware of the the gay people in your life? Because that would be the other thing I'd hear. It's like, oh, you're like this, it's like a gay dude. I'm like, what? One, why does it matter? Even for me, I got mad at myself later, because I'm like, why does that matter if you call me gay or not? It's like I literally got mad at myself, because it was like, dude, for me, it was about pigeonholing me, because I hate getting pigeonholed. I hate getting stuck in like, this is what you are. If I don't put my own labels on it, like, I get mad about it. And people were pigeonholing it, like, well, you're this guy, you're this way, and you're this way, so we must be able to step up to you a certain way. I'm like, some of the roughest brothers that I've ever met in my life are queer men, because they have to. Queer black men have had to put up with so much crap that they were some of the roughest people that I've met. I've seen people crack nails to get in a fist fight, while just like so to use that as a slur, one, in the wider context of things, it made me angry. Two, is the fact that you felt that you had the right to come and talk to me that way, not knowing me other than what you saw from me for 6 episodes of TV. You've known me, or what you think is me, for less than an hour of television. Okay. And I understand how Survivor is, and you get connected with it, because we all get connected with people on our TVs and on our streaming services, because that's the nature of human nature. We will connect with those people that we see there, because we feel we know them, and there's an emotional touch, especially if you're looking straight into the lens and talking about how you're feeling. But you don't know me. You don't know why I was crying out there, why it was such a big deal. Yeah, I shed tears on there, on Survivor, and people made fun of that, because that wasn't masculine enough for some people underneath certain definitions. Look, I was crying out there because I was heartbroken and proud at the same time. That interview, and I talk about this a lot, that particular interview happened after a night of deep introspection, where we just come back from that really particularly vicious tribal council, where Rocky called me a whole bunch of names afterwards at the fire, after we voted Sylvia off, after it was tight. I thought I was going home at that point, and we had that big blow up afterwards, and I went back, and they put a camera on my face and said, "How are you feeling, Anthony?" And I said a bunch of things that they couldn't hear ever, because that's where I was. So somewhere there's footage of Anthony cursing a blue streak and talking all sorts of things. And if that ever comes up, I'm never running for office anyway, so that's fine. But and I went and I crawled on the boat and I stared up at the sky. And in Fiji, it's absolutely beautiful. It's one of the things about filming out there that is great. It's gorgeous. And at night, there's no lights anywhere. So you can literally see the heavens and the stars and the bend of the earth. You can see the sky bend, right? And I was looking at the sky and was laying up there. And I was thinking about my grandpa who passed away many years ago at this point. And how at the time I felt he would have been proud of me where I was at. And I think I said it ended up in that same secret thing that I was talking about earlier with Mookie, where I was, I did confession, and that part of that confession is that same one where I cried. It's like, I come this long way of where I was as this insecure, insecure, self-effacing kid, and I'm still self-effacing. Come on, it's kind of how I am. Insecure, self-effacing kid who had gotten picked on and gotten bullied. But I grew up, and and here I am on this island, fighting for my proverbial life. I've gone to Yale. I have picked myself up, and I've fallen down so many times out there, literally and emotionally. And I managed to pick myself up again. And I'm like, I made it that far at that point. Like I think I said, it's like out here, I'm Superman. I can walk on the water, right? And I was thinking at the time about during the interview of how, and see, I do it now. See, I'm talking about it. How much I miss my grandpa and how much I wish he had known what I was doing out there, and the thought that he would be, hopefully be proud of me. And that's what got caught, So by that point, when they asked me, it's like, are you going to quit? I was like, I'm not going to quit. If they want to keep me off the island, they're going to have to stab me in the back and throw me off. That's where I was. And for people to assume that they're thinking I'm crying just because of being yelled at by Rocky, well, that's the power of editing. That's how a show gets edited. That's the story that they're crafting. But to just step up to me like, oh, you're this crybaby who's cried on national TV because you're over emotional and you're like a broad, no offense, like a chick, you're soft. We can come up to you and text. It's like, no, like you don't. First of all, like you're this fanboy white boy step up to a black dude in a bar that you don't know who he is really, that you ain't never met before. And you're going to sit up here and be like, oh, basically, you were a sissy, right? Yeah. It's like, first of all, don't come up with that one. Second of all, do you know me? You don't know me, do you? You don't know, if I'm straight, gay, like homicidal, suicidal, or, secretly I peel all this away and I'm a white boy, like, who's, carrying 6 guns and wears a black trench coat. You don't know who I am. So why would you step up to any person like that you think you know? And even in the real world, like, would anybody, I'll challenge any of you listeners up here, would you step up to somebody like that you don't know unless you thought you can get away with it? And the question is no, you wouldn't. So you either have something that you think you know or that you do know, right? To step up to somebody like that. I got that more than I thought I would ever get. Because I didn't realize, because social media was different. Social media was this neat emerging thing, a decade and a half ago. Oh my God. Yeah. So, we didn't have Twitter. We didn't have people who could immediately refute what was going on at the time. We didn't have live streams the same way we do now. Right. So like when Survivor was on, we didn't know we didn't have any way of responding to people unless we read the boards, after the show was over. Right. Because nobody was, even on the boards, people weren't posting right then. People would watch the show and they come back and post furiously. They'd take notes because we're all crazy that way because we're fans of the show. But, people weren't live casting. People weren't watching stuff live podcasts. People weren't doing it that way. So, right. Now we have Twitter, right? Where people are like, this is what you didn't hear on that, and this is what I didn't see on that, And
right, it's 2007. It's like like it's just before like social media is gonna really like take off and get going. Like your Friendster and your MySpace, but it's before like Facebook and Twitter are about to blow up.
Yeah, no, it's exactly. So Twitter is another year off.
Yeah.
From blowing up. All right, Facebook. Facebook is still like in college kids' hands.
Yes.
Right. Napster is our big thing, right? So we're still Napsters and lyric.ch. Those guys remember that one, right? So that's what we're having. And, I'm trying to refute people in the club, or on a board where I don't have posting access because I didn't post. I'm just watching it and going, this sucks. It was a different world, and it's different now, and people have rewatched our season, and that's kind of the cool thing is that people have rewatched our season, and I can tell when people are rewatching because my friend count on Twitter or Facebook goes up, and it's just really neat to see that we have fans because it's a different age, right? It's a different age, and people who are watching it now are coming at it from a different point of view, and so we have whole new, we have Gen Y, Gen Z, who's now, watching this stuff now going, oh, wow, I can relate to that a lot more than I can relate to in earlier seasons or current seasons. And for me, it's refreshing. But there are times when it's still, it's still odd. It's still, I've got a lot more support in the last years, probably more than I had while the show was on.
Yeah.
But in the last couple of years, it's been neat to watch people rewatching or rediscovering our season of Survivor.
But Anthony, that's really interesting to hear what you're saying about that. You had like a really negative experience where, you were harassed more in person after the show than you were then from some of these people who play and then get harassed online.
Well, there was online was different. Like you say, online was different. It's like, so if you want to harass people, you either said stuff in a forum because they're, the forums.
Yes.
There's 40,000 forums devoted to Survivor. I mean, over exaggerating, I know, but still there's a lot of them. But the forums now, it's like, at the time, it's like if you weren't on the forums, somebody would go like, hey, this got posted about you. You get a message and you're like, what? And that's changed now because, now it's like there are more of us on the forums because we've kind of put ourselves out there. But at the time, I got harassed. And just to be clear, it wasn't like constant harassment. It was just like they stand out really large because when they happened, they were a big deal. And then I had people who were just, somebody's like, oh no, they're just drunk and playing. I'm like, yeah, but it's still not cool. But the cool thing is, and just kind of not to be super negative about it, is the cool thing is that for every horrible moment that I had like 10 better ones, where I'd meet people or like people would be really cool, or they'd come up and say like, we loved you on the show and we thought you should have had a better season. And, we were rooting for you to the end. Turns out I lost a lot of people money in their Survivor betting pools. I found that out. A lot of people had bet on me. I was like, oh, that's very flattering. I'm sorry I lost you money. I wish I had won so I could have made you, money and made me money too. It's really easy to focus on a lot of the negatives, in part because they tend to be louder. They tend to be louder both emotionally and in person. They tend to be louder just because you get into that match.
They hurt. Like it cuts deep when you hear or read something.
Yeah.
Okay, so Anthony, let me ask you this. So you're a big fan of the show, and when a lot of us, I think, going into it, will say, okay, of course we all go into it, we want to win, but we'll say, okay, I don't want to be the first person voted out. Okay, I want to make the jury. Okay, I want to make the final 2 or 3. When you started the game, was it important that you made it to the jury because you were right there at it?
Oh man, my biggest challenge, the thing that I put on myself was that I wanted to make it to the merge. I wanted to make it to the merge. I was like, I got to make it to the merge. So if I make it to the merge, I'll be like, I knew in my head, and I still think to this day, if I had made it to the merge, I would have been at the end. I think I would have been in the final 5. That's
Yeah.
I can make that supposition all day long, but
no,
like,
I think you're right. And I think that really what the worst thing that happened to you, in my humble opinion, was you got picked by the wrong team in the draft. Who picked you in the draft?
in the initial draft.
No, in the
pick.
swap. In the swap, you got picked by the wrong.
I was the last. I was the last person picked. I'm trying to remember. It was
yes.
I'm trying to remember who picked me. I think it was it Dreams? Dreams who picked me?
Dreams picks Anthony. Yeah, that's in my notes.
I think it was Dreams.
Dreams screwed you. Because if you would have gone to Moto, that you're in the final 5.
Dude, if I had gone to Exile Island, I think I would have been in the final 5.
Mm-hmm.
I think if I gone to Exile Island, I would have made it to the merge, because I was missing like one vital clue, because they were leaving the clues out there.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite stories to tell was like, I was at a hotel room, the night after New Year's Day, right after coming back, and I've been to a party, and I was in the shower, and like I started screaming in the shower, and the girl, my girlfriend at the time was in another room. She's like, "What's happened? What's wrong?" I'm like, nothing. Because I did like the end of the Usual Suspects, where he puts the whole story together.
Yeah.
Right.
Skokie, Illinois. Sure.
Yeah. Like I had that moment in the shower. I was like sitting there going like, yeah, it's like, because, you replay it, especially when you get back off, like for that first month before you see the show, you're like, you just keep every move you made. And I was sitting there looking at the water going like, yeah, man, it's like, it's too bad. Like we didn't get a well dug the way we wanted to. And then I went, well dug. Everybody kept telling me to stop digging where I was digging. Sylvia was digging. And then it was like, I flashed at Sylvia digging, going like, I'm just making her beds more comfortable. We dug through her pockets at one point when she got back from Exile Island. So we found like one of the clues. It was like, it was it's in a small, the idol's in someplace, in a small area near where you sleep. And I knew that, Yao-Man had told us to dig deep. It's like, he says you have to dig deep. And I was like, and for whatever reason, it didn't even occur to me. It's like, it was at the highest point. Like, it's great. Like, I had all the clues. I had all the clues. I just didn't have them together. It's like, at the highest point, near where we sleep, dig deep. And it was like, I saw all of it. I saw all of it in my brain, and I screamed because I knew exactly where the freaking island was. And I was so mad. But it's a month later, so that point it was useless.
Actually, Anthony, you know who screwed you? Cassandra screwed you. Because Cassandra picks Yao-Man. That should have been you. That should have been you. She picks you. You go to Moto. You're good.
Yeah, and Yao-Man would have gone.
And then Dreams picks. Yeah, Dreams is gonna pick Yao-Man. He'll go back to Ravu.
Yeah, he goes back to Ravu, or he could pick Lisi.
Mm-hmm.
Like either way, it would. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they had to pick somebody from the opposite team. So I'm not sure who else was there at that point. But that changes everything. Yeah.
I would have gone further. I would have had 3 more days.
Come on, Cassandra. What about the alliance?
She didn't want to be obvious about it. I mean, come on, let's be real. She wanted to not be obvious about who we were, and we were, I mean, that was Earl's problem. Earl's like, who do I pick? I'm going to pick Michelle. So it's honestly like, and like I said, I was mad because I had an entire afternoon. By myself looking for that damn idol, and I just couldn't put the dig part into like the really actual physical dig part into it, because and like I say, like waking up screaming a month later going, I know where it is. Like if they sent me to Exile Island and be like, okay, cool, I gotta go dig, and like underneath the point where we're sleeping, I would have found it. Almost found it. Earl knew because he was blocking for Yao-Man, because they talked, and Yao-Man knew where it was. We were digging up, and I know we both told the story. Like we were making like this big water trellis collecting system. We made like the aqueducts to collect rainwater. They got knocked over in the middle of the night, and part of that was we were putting up like a little wind wall, and I was digging down to lean it right up against that point. Right up, like you watch that show, you can see like our little lean-to, but the bottom of it is right underneath the high point. And I dug a little bit, and Earl goes, "No, that's deep enough. That's deep enough." And I was like, "Oh, okay, sure." Now, like every time, I would have had it. Would have had the freaking idol. And they had 3 more days.
Mm-hmm.
Would have sent somebody home. It wouldn't have been me, and they would have been like, that moment with Edgardo where he's like that would have been like Mookie or Rocky going,
Mm-hmm.
huh? Would have been nice, but if sneezes were wheezes and dreams were bleems, yeah, that's
yeah.
So Anthony, when you change and get that, when you get the chance to play and have your second chance, what do you do differently? What have you learned from the first time you played to get down to make the jury and then get to the end?
Well, one, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid of the social game of standing back up to somebody. All right. That was one thing that I was trying really hard to watch my temper because, believe it or not, the quiet, mellow guy has a temper.
Yeah.
And the last thing my mom and my grandma told me when I went out, they're like, watch your temper. I was like, okay, I'll watch my temper. And keeping that clamp down, clearly for some people, I needed to let that come out. And I think that's the first thing that had changed. It's like the knowing that, to not try and play a character in my head, just go ahead and be me and, get mad when I'm going to get mad and just let people know who that is. The other part is not to be afraid about being overt about secondary alliances. Because that was the thing early on. It was like, I had all these loose alliances with people, that we made. And it was like, we were people who on like day 1 and 2, I should have just been like, okay, you and me, let's go. Let's make it to at least make it to the merge, and then we'll revamp there. I didn't do that. Because it was very much this weird trepidation because everybody was kind of like, I don't want to make alliances just yet. I want to keep my options open. And there were people out there, Michelle, who I should have just straight up when I saw it, we're like, okay, you and me, and then we'll pick one other person, then we'll just go. We did that with the Black Alliance, but getting split up like we did made it hard to have numbers. And what I should have done was when I had a soft alliance and kind of like, okay, kind of Michelle, kind of stuff, I should have just dove in. I should have been like, look, I'm cool with Michelle, I'm cool with Earl, and I'm cool with JDB, because on the first day on Ravu I'm like, we'll just take Rocky along, and that gives us a number, and just say it. Just go ahead and take the chance, put myself out there to do it. Because sometimes you got to do that. Sometimes you got to just be like, just throw it in, and just go for it, and be willing to jump ship when you need to, but just at least start building that thing so that you guys have trust. Because I think if we'd done that, it would have been a much different game if I had done that. Like if I had just been like, hey, you, me, JDB, you and Rocky are close, right? Okay, let's make it a thing. I might not. It might have been different. It might have been a different thing. So that's what I think. And
Rob, let me ask him this because I know you're going to ask him stuff too, Rob. Let me ask him this thing that I'm wondering about. Is there nothing sacred? And I ask that as far as with Yao Man looking through bags. I think he looked through Sylvia's bag, and then maybe didn't he get upset that somebody was looking through his bag for an immunity idol? Is nothing sacred? Is that off limits, or even in the game of Survivor?
There's the personable answer that I can give you, and then there's a Survivor answer I'll give you. The personal answer is no. We really should respect those boundaries if they are there, if they've been made. The Survivor answer I'll give you is man, if it's on the ground and I can get to it and it's out in the open, I'm going to go through it. I did that. We did that with Sylvia's. Sylvia left her pants out.
Mm-hmm.
She left her pants out, and like right in the middle of camp, and we were like, let's go through her pockets. But she got back like, and she went in the water and she threw her pants out. We dug in her pockets. That's where we found a clue that she brought back with her. If you were playing that game smart and you have any kind of prep for it, because that's the thing. It's like you do everything that gives you any kind of advantage that you can possibly do. I want you guys, okay, next time you look at pictures of me on the island, look at what I'm wearing. It looks like I'm wearing like some goofy thing. Those pins on my hat, which were very much part of me, that was on purpose. You know why? Because those things had removable little the little pins thing going to it. I was thinking fish hooks, right?
Mm-hmm.
I had fish hooks.
Yeah,
my drawstring comes out, right? So I'm like, look, if what's his face can bring a a flag that's engineered to be a tarp.
Colby,
right?
Yeah.
If Colby, thank you. If Colby can bring a Texas flag that's actually a tarp and engineered to be a tarp, as a luxury item, I can think about what I'm wearing, and every piece of clothing I'm wearing is something, like can be disposable or can be pulled out. Like I had pants that I had a belt with drawstrings because those drawstrings were removable, and I made sure they were removable before I submitted them. And I know they go through your stuff, and they kind of when you submit. For those of you guys who don't know it, when you go on Survivor, you have to tell them what you're wearing. You have to give up your clothes, and they kind of cover up your labels and all sorts of fun things, because it's commercial TV. But the other thing is that, like, I'm sure they checked your pockets. They check your pockets for sewn in beef jerky, as was infamously happened. But it's like I engineered that outfit. Everything I had pockets I had big old deep side pockets because I was like, if I find an idol, I want to have a place to stick it. I want to be able to put my glasses somewhere so that if I have to take them off for a challenge, I still have a place to put my case, and so I don't lose them. I had a hat that had lining, so if it was a paper thing, I could rip my lining out, stuff up in there. Everything was. I picked everything that I had on me specifically for purposes of either establishing me as a character because Survivor liked it, or because I knew that every little advantage I could give to myself would be a bigger advantage. So, I made friends with a bunch of the girls because that first night out there when we had built a shelter, it rained. Well, who had an extra big oversized extra shirt that I could loan out? I did. We were all huddled together. I'm like, I was like, here, who's cold? I'm cold. Here's my shirt. I was warm. I was fine because I had multiple pairs of pants on. Somebody else was like, well, I'm still cold. I'm like, here's a hat. You can borrow my hat. And that's what we did. That's what I did. If you're not thinking about that, even in the application phase of Survivor, you're just not thinking about the game. It's all of it. And that's how you can look. You can tell the hardcore people, crazy people who've actually played, thinking about it, from the folks who aren't thinking about it, who think, I'm going to go out there and it's going to be fun and easy. It's like, knowing I'm not the best swimmer in the world, I got my one of my friends basically, I'm like going, hey, let's go swimming. He's like, why? I'm like, because I want to go swimming. He goes like, it's winter. It's October in Los Angeles. The water is like, 60 degrees. So you want to go, let's go swimming. And so I went swimming, in really cold water. I'm like, He's like, you want a wetsuit? I'm like, nope. I'm like, because if I can swim here, I can swim in warm water. I learned how to build a fire. It's all the things you should be doing. I built a fire by myself and kept it alive in my backyard for 3 days straight. I did really dumb things with, trying to get myself weaned off of sweets. So I was a big sweet guy. I stopped drinking for like a month. Just like, I'm like, I'm not going to have access to any of this stuff, Yeah,
I think I know the answer to this then from everything you just said. So would you have kept the immunity necklace from Meow Man like Dreams did? Would you have promised it and then kept it?
If you gave me the car, I would have given him the car back. I'm like, congrats, you get the car.
Yes, that's what we talked about, Rob.
Yeah.
Didn't we, Rob? Dreams.
Yeah.
So you'd have given him the car. Because I asked Dreams that. Okay, so Anthony, I asked Dreams that. I said, wouldn't it, if you had just given him the car back, then you could say, hey, we're back to even. And I don't know what Dreams said, but he's like, no, I wanted the car. I wanted the car too. What did he say, Rob?
Get it, Dreams. Yeah, get everything. Yeah.
Get him on everything. That's right.
Yeah.
Hold it.
Yes.
It's like,
you would have given him the car. You would have given him the car back.
I would have given him the car back, but I was playing a different game from the Dreams.
Yeah.
I was like, look, you're talking about a brother who had nothing. He'd gone from having nothing to have a little bit of stability, and he was still young. And that was a thing that a young player would do. A young player would say, a young player who's never had anything would say, like, let me keep it, let me get it. And then an older player, right? An older player who's had been around a little bit would have known that that's a thing that's a mistake, right? As it were. Right, because that's going to come back to bite you in the butt. That's how he was playing his game. If that had been me in that same situation, I would have given him the car back. Like, sorry, dude, you get a car. I'm going to stay here a little bit longer. I'm also a fan of the show, so I know the car curse is a real thing. So, I'm like,
right.
I love this car. So I love this car. I'd love to have this car, but man, I want $1 million more than I want a car.
Right.
Sorry, Yao, man. Here's the keys. Enjoy.
Yeah, like Earl said, I don't think I would have gotten myself into this situation when Jeff asked him what he would do, and I suspect it would be the same for you.
As best as I could, yeah. No,
Yeah.
And he's absolutely right. It's like, I wouldn't end up in that situation if I were you. Yeah, that's.
Could we go back to the 20th cast member of Survivor Fiji? I know that for so many Survivor fans, people are fascinated about the person that we didn't get to see play the game. There was a 20th cast member, Melissa, who was supposed to play. Was this a big thing that happened in like the pregame where everybody, you're talking about like, you pay attention to everybody. Oh, Liliana's putting on sunscreen. Was it a big deal of, hey, there's another woman here and now she's not here?
Yeah, because, there's this other woman here and it was, you got to remember, we were coming off of having just seen the first half of Cook Islands. We just saw the race war, right? We'd all been watching it, and so we knew that they split, they had a group of 20 that they split up into, to 4 groups of 5, right? By race. And we were counting, we were like, okay, so, we're like, there's 5 Black people here. There are, before we knew that, that Lisi's, Hispanic. We were like, okay, so we got a weird number of white people here, but it maybe somebody's Latina, we don't know it, because that happens. It was like we were counting, we're like, they're going to split us up again. They're going to totally split us up by race again, like because the numbers are here, and we were prepped for that. And I think in the back of everybody's mind that was what was going to happen, or it was going to be like you must pick somebody from a different, like one of each, or like it was going to be some version of what they just did, because I know that was something that Burnett was interested in at the time, because he asked about it during the interviews, like during the audition process. He asked, like, what do you think? What do you think about that? And so when we get out there and we get on the boats, when we're paddling in, and they strand you in the middle of the ocean. Like they put you on the boats as they get off and paddle toward that flag. And we weren't really thinking, but we started counting, and everybody started counting, and we're like, we're missing a number. So the first time we could talk, we're like, there's not enough people here. We're supposed to have 20. We thought she was a plant. People were so paranoid. We thought that they planted somebody from casting to like spy on us, and just kind of make sure we weren't, messing up. Like, because when we get to the island and we get to the beach and there's 19 of us and no Jeff, for the first time in for how long, there's no Jeff waiting for you to go like, welcome to Survivor. It's like, we don't know what to do. We're getting airdrops, we're getting all this information. And there's 19. Did somebody fall off the boat? Did a shark eat somebody? Like we went through all of that. And, I think for the longest, until we found out much later, we thought she was a plant. We thought that they literally put somebody in because it's Survivor and, don't put anything, over them, under them. It's like, we thought that they put just another person in just to kind of ramp us up for something. Little did we know that later she freaked out on the docks. Who are we to know? She stopped, what I'd heard, and you guys probably know more, is like that she stopped taking meds. She was on an anxiety medication that, you're allowed to take. Again, big secrets that aren't secrets for people, who don't know. It's like, if you're on meds and you have to take meds to keep you alive, right? They let you take your meds. You get to take your meds with you on the show, because to do anything less would be stupid. And I guess she was on, like I heard, and I don't want to, be libelous or words, but like the story, as it were, was that she was on meds that she stopped taking, and she started freaking out as we got more and more isolated, because it is, you get on a plane and you want a plane to another plane, and the plane takes you to a bus, and the bus takes you to a camp, and then you walk from the camp to another camp, which is tiny, and you're away from everything. And, and then they reverse that to even smaller things to get you out there. And from what my understanding was, that she basically tapped out at the docks. She tapped out at the last possible moment. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what I've heard. But I know it's hard for everybody, because Rocky, part of what I didn't know at the time, and I'd find out later, and just talking with him and listening and stuff with him, he'd stopped smoking cold turkey. He'd been smoking up until he got on the docks. He had his last track.
That explains a lot. Yeah.
Which explains a lot, right?
Yeah.
And it was like something like, that explains so much. And, if I'd known that, I would have been like, okay, you just stopped smoking. Okay, I'm going to be cool about some stuff. But I mean, it's one of those things that's really hard for people to wrap. Survivor is scary, Survivor is absolutely frightening. Once you get out there, I mean, you guys know this, like that moment it becomes real, when you're in the caravan going to get dropped off at a camp, or if you were on the boat where they tell you, okay, here, don't get in the water because it's piranha, it's like the moment that they take the training wheels off and say, paddle that way, it gets really scary. And as you're getting closer to it, and as you get closer to that moment where that becomes real, it's a frightening thing. So like, I have no doubt that she tapped out once he got there. I mean, if I weren't all in at that point, I would have may have done the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I had that reaction every time we'd go to an immunity challenge.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was just, the nerves just took over every single time because, I mean, like I said, we all want to stay another 3 days. And this is the time where you learn if you're going back to tribal, depending on how you do. So, yeah, I can absolutely see, even in the game, how people, like you said, tap out. So, on your season, there's only been one person, Yowman, that has returned, and I think he was on Fans versus Favorites. So, I know you have said you'd like to play again, but of this cast of 19 players, who would you like to see get their second chance, other than you, of course, that hadn't had a second chance?
I would love, there's actually a couple people I'd love to see play again. Believe it or not, I'd like to see Rocky play again.
Wow.
Wow. Are y'all friends?
We
have y'all stayed in touch?
We have stayed in touch. He's actually one of the people that I've stayed in touch with most of my cast. And we're in LA, so we inevitably run into each other, and that's kind of how that happens. And I honestly, like, I tell people all the time, like, I actually liked Rocky out there. I mean, that's part of why it was so hard when he was all up in my grill, because like, he's not a bad person. He really isn't. And I'd really love at this point, 15 years later, people stop giving him crap. It's like, it's a dude who had a way of looking at the world, who was cold turkey of cigarettes, in an impossible situation. Well, he's starving, bro, he's starving, because I mean, that's where it's kind of how we get, it's like, bro, I'm starving, we're starving and wet and, dehydrated, and you're with people that, for whatever reason, those little things that annoy people about, that you can deal with in the real world, like those little things, like maybe it's like, he's like, you're whining all the time, bro. I was like, Anthony wasn't whining. Anthony was, who is what they call sweet meat in the South. They call him sweet meat, right? It's like every mosquito within a mile radius was on me.
Mm-hmm.
So I was probably in my sleep going, because you're miserable. I mean, you guys know this, like, you're miserable. Mm-hmm. And my biggest worry was, like, I was worried I was going to snore people to death. Because, like, too much information, TMI, I snore. Mm-hmm. And that was my biggest fear. I was going to wake everybody up snoring. And it turns out it was Yowman, who's a bigger snorer than I am.
Oh.
And, people knew. He's like, don't tell anybody, but I snore. Like, I'll sleep over here. So Yowman slept in a different corner of the cave and from everybody else, because Yowman snores. He snores. I apparently, scratch myself to bleeding when attacked by mass amounts of biting insects. And and Rocky gets really irritable. Who knew? I mean, it's understandable. I mean, not everybody can be as laid back as Mr. Earl Cole. Not everybody can be that laid back and look at all these people out here and know that he's got some players and you got some poachers, and I'm gonna win this whole thing. Not everybody can be that laid back and cool about it. Mm-hmm. Some of us are just like, we get wet and we're like cats. We're just like, I want to be dry and I hate everything. And right now I just want to punch something and I can't punch anybody. That's where we are. So, so I want to see Rocky play again in a time where he gets to play. It'd be an interesting game because people look at Rocky and that's what they think he is. And they're going to get a different person because he's grown up a lot and he's more aware about a lot of things. And he's not the young wild buck that he was. I like to see JDB if he get a chance to actually get a chance to play the game. There's a lady who went in to Survivor with a lot of stuff going on in her life at the time already. And I in many ways, and we've talked about a little bit, like some ways her head wasn't all the way in the game yet. I think if she'd had another 3 days, she probably would have been like, okay, this is real. She was still in that like, oh, this is just a fun adventure. And then they got real. I would love to see her get a chance to actually play. Most people from my tribe, like I like to see Michelle get a chance to play. I think Michelle could have won. I think Michelle actually could have won.
Yeah.
And I like to see Cassandra play. I love to see Cassandra play. I love them do a season of laid back older black women. Because we got some players, and think about who I'm talking about, right? Think about, like, could you imagine her and Siri on the same tribe? Could you imagine them like chilling together? It would be like the most comfortable game of Survivor of all time. Like nobody would like raise their voice. Everybody would be like calm about it, and no matter what happened, it'd be like, you know. And then the knives would come out during tribal, but I'd be okay. I think I'd be okay with that. It'd be like the least stressful game of all time. But I love her play. I would love. Yeah, there's a bunch of people from my season I'd like to see come back again. Besides, man, like don't get me wrong, like I like to see Earl play. I like to see Earl get to play with a bunch of other winners. I know that he wasn't able to do the last one because his wife would have killed him, as he was expecting. Right? So he wasn't able to do Winners at War because it was. I know for Earl's, his timing has been the timing when they've come to ask him to come back has been like, nope, getting married, nope, about to have a kid, nope, about to have another kid. It's like he hasn't caught the bounce.
You got to work that out better.
They got to figure out how to time that for his life, or be like, okay, not this season, but next season, we're putting you on the calendar. Because I think Earl's game would surprise a lot of people because it was such an open under the radar. If that makes any sense, right? Like he wasn't so far under the radar that nobody knew he was playing the game, but he was upfront about the fact that he was playing, and that he was playing more of a I'm not going to piss anybody off. I'm going to watch, and I'm going to kind of be a puppet master. And I think people discount that, and I think that's part of the reason why people are coming back to watch our season or are excited about our season. Again, is because they're looking at the game from having another 20 seasons being played now, where people can look at what we did and knowing that Earl's game was game breaking, like game breaking in a good way. Like it was a whole new way of playing Survivor. To know that we had people who for the first time were playing idol. We were the first season that had to play idols the way that they played, right? Like the whole you have to play it before the vote, right? But they don't read. They read it. Like it was such a big deal because, or rather, you have to play it after the vote before after vote before votes read. That changed the game. That changed how you play idols. It's no longer get out of jail free card. Like when you had the I got enough votes, but Jeff, I'm not going home tonight. Haha. That's an easy game. You find that idol, and if you ever find that out, automatically it's another 3 days. We're the first season you had to really think about who you're voting for in that way. And like, do they have the idol? And if you have the idol, you have to think, do I want to play this? Because now might not be the time to play it. That's a whole new, like, we did that first. That's hard.
Yeah.
We're the first one to do that. We were the first to really have, and heck, we're the only ones to have to build our shelters the way we did. I mean, like they've done other building challenge, build a cool shelter challenges, but they got to keep it. We didn't get to keep it, and the folks who won it later at the merge, they didn't get to keep it either. So it's I remember watching Pearl Islands where they had to build that cool shelter, right? Was that Pearl? Yeah, that was Pearl, right? Where they had to build the. Was that Pearl or was that All Stars?
I think it was All Stars.
It was All Stars.
Was it All Stars?
All Stars, where they had to build. The challenge was to build a shelter, right?
Yeah.
And the fact that they got to keep it, even if it wasn't the best, it makes a big difference. We didn't even get to keep ours, our season. So they were expecting to come back and like have this luxury and actually have a different game, So yeah, that's me talking. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
Okay. Anthony, could you tell us, would you have been able to have done the Mecca?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I would have been able to do the Mecca. I wouldn't have done. I wouldn't have done a backflip, but yeah, man, you're talking to a guy who at the time I was like heavy clubbing. So I miss club things that I miss about the pandemic. I miss going to clubs. I wasn't necessarily doing the clubs that most people would think. You're like Black Guy from Compton. What clubs are you doing? I was going to Soul Night, right? So I was doing 60s, 70s Northern Soul, right, and Britpop. Those are places I go. I new wave, punk, Britpop clubs. For the Britpop nerds, like you can see me dancing to Pulp.
Mm-hmm.
Pulp and Suede, and like a crazy person. Just as much. I throw some ska in. You put the specials on, and I'm your man. And people go like, really? It's like, yes. It's a whole black folk in the clubs at ska clubs it's a thing. Just so you know. But yeah, I could have done the Mecca. I would have been all over the Mecca. I mean, we actually got Earl and I for a while. We were putting on our James Brown shows because we were bored. You get bored. You have nothing to do. So we were doing James Brown, Maceo, for a little bit, and we got told by production to stop because we didn't have rights to the music.
Yeah, they'll do that.
But we were dancing. We were just like, there's a picture. If you search around, you see this picture of me and Earl with our knees up. We were doing the horn section. So yeah, I could have done the Mecca. I've been all over the Mecca. I've been like, okay, let's do the Mecca, and I've been like doing what there's. It's been cool. So
okay, Anthony. So you could do the Mecca. We got that. Oh, we got that. Now, how about the immunity food challenge? Could you have done the other delicious Fijian delicacies other than what you had to do against Papa Smurf?
So, see the much debated one. So of all the things I could have picked, pig snout was actually the perfect thing. Pig snout. If anybody's eaten pig snout or pig's feet or stuff, right? It tastes like pork chop. Yeah. It's gristly bacon. Problem is, it's gristly.
Is it really? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
It's delicious. It was like eating a pork chop. Like I was enjoying it, but the problem is you're trying to eat something fast, and you haven't had any water.
It. Yeah.
Well, no, I was afterwards. It was I was mad. So the thing is, like at that point, we had just gotten water. Right. We had just gotten water. Yeah. So we were all dehydrated.
For the record, can I also say that was BS? That why couldn't they give you a flint? Not to take you out. You had to lick the palm fronds. Every other tribe. Well, you went to the tribal council. Here's your flint. For you guys, no. Oh, Ravu, you have to make it yourself. That's it.
So we strongly suspect. I'm gonna tell some behind the scenes stuff. I strongly suspect that we were supposed to have fire after that first council. But Jeff told us to leave our torches, and we got back, and there, and production was like, "Where are your torches?" We're like, "Jeff said we had to leave them." They went, "Okay." like, oh, we were supposed to get fire, weren't we? But we didn't get flint at that first trouble. And let me tell you, it makes a big difference when you haven't had enough water. I mean, coconuts are fine. You can get, but it's sugar water, so you can live off of it. But that stuff dehydrates you in its own way. And it hydrates you, but it doesn't. And you're talking about a bunch of people who had dry mouth. So we just gotten water. I was trying to drink water, and if go back and watch the cut. Go back and watch that challenge. You can see because they made a point to show me sipping water. Because I was trying to get water, and we were all passing around, and I got my mouth wet, and I was holding water in my mouth. I'll tell you now. So for that challenge, I was like, okay, I've got no spit. I've got to do this. I'm going to hold water in my mouth. I'm going to hold my water. So I got a little bit of water, just enough so I could keep the food mushy. So I knew I was going to have to drink something. So okay, I can do this. And Jeff kept asking me questions. It's like Jeff saw that I had water in my mouth, and was going he kept making me talk. And so I kept having to swallow more and more and more. And finally, he's like, so Anthony, what do you think about this? Can you do this? And you're ready for this? And you do this? I'm like, he's like, so no, really, you have to talk. I'm like, yes, I'm ready, Jeff. He's like, what? And he kept making longer answers. So finally, I had to swallow. So anything that I had in my mouth was now gone. And then I get this pig snout, which one was the first real food that I had in my mouth in 9 days. right? The first non-citrus, and it was bacon basically, and it was really good. And I took a big bite of it, which was my first mistake. I just shoved half of it and bit it off. So I'm like, I'm just going to do this. And it was like, we both looked at each other. It was funny because Gary and I, again, I don't know if he told you guys, like, so we were in one of those loose, squishy alliances that I told you, about. So Gary and I, like, so we got to get to the merge. Like, I had numbers if I got to the merge. I'm so mad about it. And I get there and I looked at Gary and Gary looked at me, and we both start chewing, and both of us realized that this is going to be a harder challenge than we thought it was going to be. And we started out, rabbiting. It's like, now it's just going. And I kept biting it and chewing. And how food's supposed to get squishy? It wouldn't get squishy. It just kept turning into more. If you imagine eating a carrot that doesn't ever get gummy, it just turns into like carrot dust. That's what I had. I had pig snout dust in my mouth that I couldn't swallow because I couldn't get enough juice to get it gummy to get down. So that's my excuse. I'm sticking to it. That's what happened. Gary had more water.
Well, Gary wants to know: have you eaten any more bangers and mash since y'all were out there on your trip together?
Yes, bangers and mash. Yeah, dude, that was our feast in where we got sequestered. We found a little place in Sydney. We were sequestered in Sydney, Australia, and we found this little place called the Shark. I hope it's still there. Where for like $8, like Australian, you got like a beer. You can get a bangers and mash and a pitcher of beer, and we took turns buying for each other, and we made our money stretch. We like every third meal we go to this place. It was great. So yes, Gary, yeah, I've had so much bangers and mash in the intervening years, and I'm proud to say I think of you every time I eat bangers and mash. So yeah.
Oh, they'll love to hear that. All right, and also Gary was telling me about where you guys would go into different bars. This is once you were sequestered. You would go in a bar to get one drink and then move to the next bar, have a drink, move to the next bar.
Oh yeah, we did some pub crawls. Let me tell you, if you go to Sydney, Australia, there are some beautiful pubs. There are some beautiful pubs down there, and some of them are old in Sydney, and it is a weird culture shock, especially as a black man, African American, going into an Australian place. And things are changing down there too. But like, there's a couple of places we went in, there were signs on the wall, and they were dead serious. It's like no shirt, no shoes, no Sheilas, no abos, no service. And I walked in, and black guy walks in down there, and they all went like, "Hi," and they go, "Oh, you're a Yank. All right, come on in, mate." It was like the attitude completely changed. And there were places where the girls were like, "We'll see you at the next bar," because they had like the no Sheila sign on it, and they were serious. Like, there are no girls allowed in some of those places. And but we went into some of those places, like, "Yeah, you don't want to go in that one. That one, oh, I wish you could go in." And we did some pub crawls some nights, man. And yeah, my liver is still in some ways recovering from Australia.
Why was Papa Smurf evacuated anyway? Because I guess he recovered pretty quickly with the bangers and mash and doing the pub crawl.
Honestly, he had them at the time. He had scars. So where the rest of us were sleeping up at the camp, he wandered down, because apparently like a third of us snored and we're worried about it. He wandered down to the beach itself, and sand ants or sand fleas, he got bit so bad that he basically had a toxic reaction, where he really, he didn't remember leaving. Like he woke up, like a day later in the medical tent where they're, feeding him water and some other stuff. And he's like, "I don't remember." And so, he pretty much, best I can figure out, got toxic shock from all the bug bites.
Wow.
Anthony, it's really neat to hear talking to your castmates, and y'all are still close, even 14 years later. Earl Cole wanted me to tell you, he said, "Tell my brother Numsy that I love zombies too."
Yes.
He said you understand exactly what that is. So.
Oh, I know exactly what that is. Pavilion. Earl, if you're listening, pavilion. What? And people who get that, they'll know that. Yeah, we met at the pavilion. Brother Numsy, we're moving. Yes, I know. Yeah, that's
and then
we are Eddie Murphy bonds.
And we got a message from Rita. I know y'all were, I think I mentioned in the intro, part of the Special 7. And do you have that, Rob, the message from...
Here you go. Here's a special message for Anthony.
Salut, mon cher Anthony. C'est Rita. Je t'envoie un très fort embrasse. So everyone, that's a little or big surprise for all of you listening. Anthony actually understands and speaks a little French. So he was also, besides being my Ravu partner in crime, at least until my very end. I tried, Anthony, I tried to convince you to please stay with me, stay in our alliance. But you know what? More important than that alliance, we did stay in an alliance for life as really, really the closest of friends, as you can see. And that's why I will always take a moment out of my day to share with everyone how much I sincerely love this man, how grateful I am to God for putting him in my tribe, not just on Ravu, but in my tribe to form an alliance for life. So everyone out there listening, Anthony Robinson is really a great, great man, a great friend, and he's also a great father for all of you who might not know that. All right. Well, Anthony, je te laisse de nouveau. Je t'embrasse et merci. Teresa, thank you so much. And Rob for bringing me on for a few minutes. I hope to get a chance to be on your show at some point in the near future, whenever that's meant to be. Signing off for now, but not getting voted off for now. Lip Gloss Rita from Survivor Fiji. Love you all. Muchos besos y abrazos. Que Dios me los bendiga. Hasta pronto.
Okay.
Oui, c'est vrai.
Anthony!
C'est mon cher, c'est mon chéri. Elle est très sympa. Elle est très sympa, très gentille. Et j'ai oublié tout mon français. C'est vrai. Nous parlions le français avec le deux. Et and yeah, I do speak a little bit of French. We figured that out pretty early on out there. And unfortunately, our French wasn't strong enough to actually use that. Mm-hmm. And the way the balances work. But I was going to keep that in my back pocket if it came out to like a tribal where it was like, who we need to vote out? Because I knew it's like if Rita was still out there with us, it was going to be like, okay, who are we voting out? You know, qui le français? Y? No? Un, deux, trois? No. We would have been working that out. But yeah, Rita and I are still friends. She came out here. We keep it, like I said, for the most part, for all of us, our season, have kept on and off touch with each other. If nothing else, through social media. Some of us have been a lot closer than others, and some of us, kind of go in and out of each other's lives. But Rita and I, because we were the older kids, as it were. Mm-hmm. We weren't the old kids, but we weren't the youngins, and we were the early middle agers, I guess. Mm-hmm. I don't even know, because I was 32. Rita was 30. Rita does not look as old as she was out there. Seriously, Rita, she still looks like she's 28. It's like she's got great genes.
Yep.
And she was
Rita
like 38.
was 38.
Yeah.
Yes. She's beautiful. 14 years later, she's still gorgeous.
And she was 38, and you're like, wait, she was 38? No way. It's funny because like you put pictures of her and her now, college age daughter, next to each other, and I'm like, that was your baby who painted your toenails. She's like, right? Like, they look like sisters. They really do look like sisters. And Rita's got great genes. I'm jealous because Rob can see this. I'm gray and wrinkly now, and it's just funny because we keep in contact, and I try and keep track of her career, and she's moved around, and she's had one of the better success stories for Survivor. And it's a lot of us call each other on our birthdays, so it's kind of fantastic, that was a lovely message. I'm really, really super happy to have heard that one. That makes me happy. Thank you.
And then I got one more clip for you. This is from one of our podcasters, Aaron Robertson, from the panel the other night, talking about the impact that you had on him personally watching you on the show.
And also to briefly touch on Anthony. Anthony, I do want to say to you, if you are listening to this, Anthony, you are an inspiration to me. You were somebody that it was maybe the closest to ever seeing me on a show like this. Seeing a fellow Black nerd on television, it was so inspiring to see. And I cannot thank you enough for being unapologetically yourself. And we'll talk about your accounts when we get to it. But just wanted to say that to you, somebody who has a very similar name to mine. We're both ARs, Robertson. They often tell me, confuse my last name with Robertson anyway. So I feel like we're practically family at this point. But yes, Anthony, you're inspiration.
Yeah. He was, very excited to get to talk about it. Yeah.
Lovely.
Yeah.
See, this is, again, It's a different world. Like, I never got to hear this stuff from people. I just got, it's funny because my friends who were really all about, they were excited. So many of my friends just stopped watching after I got voted off.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, no, you got to keep watching. They're like, no, I can't watch it anymore. You're not there. And it's like, it sucks how you got voted off. I'm like, no, but my story's not over yet. You have to come back because it's ripples. But to know that there were other, it's nice to know that there were other Black folk watching.
Yeah.
Who got something out of that. Because, I was so removed from, there was a point where I got removed from it, where I just stopped. Like, I couldn't read any reactions. I couldn't read anymore because I was getting so much there were so many people who were like, yeah, Rocky was right. Yeah, you sucked. And yeah, you were a weak player. And yeah, it was like, and it's funny because like, I didn't hear from I didn't hear from most of the Black community. So like, I had everything I was hearing were from, Midwestern white guys, who were just like, who were being bored or mean. And that, I wish I'd heard that kind of stuff 15 years ago.
Yeah.
I wish I'd heard that 15 years ago because it would have been for a different time.
Yeah.
And this, you've said it in enough of these, both of you guys have said it enough of the podcast where it's like, and people don't realize it, that you really are the surrogate for the entire Black community every time you go on one of these shows, and people don't understand that you play the game that way, knowing that everything you do is going to be a judgment on the entire Black community and how you do. So, Black nerdy guy from Compton who's got a slight temper but has a long fuse about it has to be chill, because everybody's expecting like the Compton. Like, even Bob Dog was like, man, I expected his brother come out with some cutoff shorts and like some kicks and like to be all like mad, but like then I got this nerdy guy and I didn't even expect that. That's what people will think. They hear Compton and they have this one picture of what a kid from Compton should be. And I got that from even from some Black reporters. I got that crap from Black reporters. They're like, well, I had one, I literally looked at the person who was running, they do the after show thing. This woman was like, well, I don't know where Compton you're from. I ain't never seen nobody in Compton act from like where you live. You ain't from Compton. And this woman gave me so much shit in this interview. She wouldn't let me answer questions. She just wanted to be like, like you were sorry excuse for a Black man on the show. But that was like the only Black reporter I talked to.
And thank you for sharing that, Anthony.
Anthony, thank you for coming on with us today.
Oh,
it's
thanks
been
for
a
having
pleasure
me.
talking to you. Absolutely. It's funny. I'm learning all about you from just this last couple of weeks, and then listen to Rob's replay with A.A. Robertson and at Classically Gia. And I got to learn more about your season because, it has been 14 years. So it was great to catch up with your season, all the different players, and to catch up with you today. Thank you so much. I got to say this one thing that Rocky, I know he gave you a challenging time out there, but he said something about you that I don't know if it was meant to be a dig. I think he said something about you're all sensitive and sentimental. What beautiful characteristics those are, because I've seen that in you today. I've seen it today, and it's beautiful. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you guys for inviting me. But I can talk for like years, as you can tell. But thank you guys for having me on here. I'm really glad to kind of go down this little bit of memory lane and just go all over the place with you guys. It's been fun. It's been cool.
Anthony, thank you so much. That I hope you know that for a long time I've wanted to get you on the podcast, and I'm glad we were able to finally work it out.
Yeah. I'm glad to. I know. Yeah, we've been talking about this for years, literally for years. And I hope your audience enjoys me, because I'm not the funniest, I'm not the worst. I'm right there in the middle. I'm proud to be that. I'm proud to be number 28 in the middle right there. But thank you guys for having me, and hopefully we can do this again. And if you guys want to have me back on, I'd love to come back. All
right, cool.
We can talk about all sorts of stuff.
Where can people keep up with you, Anthony?
If you want to follow me, don't necessarily expect to follow back. And sometimes I'm really quiet on social media. Sometimes I'm loud. You can find me as Antonius Rex. Antonius Rex on Instagram. You can find me there on Twitter as well. I also occasionally will pop in on the podcast for No Proscenium. You can find some writings from me, both sentimental and not, reviewing some shows here and there on noproscenium.com. And I am on the airwaves here and there and everywhere. So feel free to look me up, shout out, say hi, just be respectful, and I'll be kind back to you as best as I can.
Okay, cool. Anthony, thank you so much.
Thank you guys. I appreciate it, Rob. Thank you, T-Bird. Teresa, Rob, you guys are wonderful people.
Thank you, Anthony. Have a great weekend, Anthony.
Thank you. You too. Happy Easter, because Easter and Passover and everything else.
Yes. Happy Easter, Anthony.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye.
Take care. Bye.
All right, T-Bird, there you have it. I just want to say that our conversation with Anthony was sponsored by our friends over at Geico. Do you own or rent your home? Sure you do, and I bet it could be hard work, but you know it's easy? Bundling your policies with Geico. Geico makes it easy to bundle your homeowners or renters insurance along with your auto policy, and it's a good thing, too, because you already have so much to do around your home. Go to geico.com, get a quote, and see how much you could save. It's Geico easy. Visit geico.com today. That's geico.com. All right. T-Bird, another good one. You did it.
Anthony Robinson, Fiji.
Yes, that's who we talked to.
Yes.
Yeah,
I know, but I didn't get to do my bell at the end because I didn't do the bell, but there it was. I kind of did it, but anyway. So I didn't know he had never been on RHAP before, so that's a special extra bonus.
Yeah, for a long time I wanted that. I have a mutual friend, and for years that I've been connected with Anthony, but I never got him to be on the podcast.
Perfect timing.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah.
It's such a treat for me to learn and to learn about their past, what they've done before Survivor and after Survivor. It's a lot of fun.
T-Bird, and what's coming up for you? Besides your promo.
Okay, well, besides the promo. So planted some plants this week, and then of course my girlfriend says you never plant anything till after Easter.
It's a late Easter.
So
it's April.
Basically,
yeah,
but Easter's Sunday, and so it seems like every year I do it a few days ahead of time, thinking, oh, it's going to be fine. So let's see. Tonight, I guess I'll be covering all the plants that I planted this week because we're supposed to have freezing weather tonight. So that's going to be on the next day or so to do that, and that's about it.
Okay. All right.
What about with you?
T-Bird just got all these podcasts going on. Of course, we had the 28th best season of Survivor Fiji last week. The 27th best season of Survivor is coming your way here on Wednesday. Plus, everything with Big Brother Canada. I'll be wrapping up 90 Day Fiancé, Tough as Nails, and much more. And, of course, chatting with the patrons of Rob as a Podcast. Of course, it's the start of a new month. Great time to get involved with everything we have going on for the patrons of Rob Has a Podcast. And this month, we just started doing a new patron orientation. I'll be live with the newest members of RHAP on the last Tuesday in April. So be on the lookout for that and all of our patron activities at robhasawebsite.com/patron. All right, T-Bird?
Yes, I see you're doing meet and greets now.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's a great way to say hello to all of the new members, explain all the benefits and any other questions that people have. And basically, just get the chance to say hi to a bunch of new faces.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
All right, T-Bird.
With Would the first lady of podcasting be on the meet and greets?
Oh, okay. Well, I can't speak for her, but maybe we can get her to pop her head in at least.
That's right.
Yeah.
Special appearance by.
Special appearance by. All
when
right.
the mood hits.
All right, T-Bird. Thank you so much. Until next time, take care, everybody. Have a good one. Bye.
Bye.
If you stay here and listen, your life won't ever be the same. 'Cause we're talking with T-Bird now. This T-Bird you cannot change. Oh, and things might get pretty strange.